Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me today for my review of the 1972 classic horror anthology, Tales from the Crypt, directed by Freddie Francis. So, this is obviously one of the more popular anthology films as it inspired a long-running television series. And the question is Tales from the Crypt any good? It's definitely influential, but how good is it? I would say overall it's a good movie, but I think there's some things that could have made it better. My first issue with this film is that there are 5 stories presented, plus the wraparound story, which doesn't get a lot of time, but it's still there, which gives us a total of 6 stories. I think cutting maybe 1 or 2 of the lesser stories and giving more time in my opinion, the better stories may have helped this film. But I'll get to that as I go through each story. So we start with a pretty basic premise where this group of 5 individuals are kind of drawn somehow. We're not sure how yet, although the twist is kind of obvious if you've seen things like this before. They're basically drawn into this crypt where they meet the crypt keeper, who's played by Ralph Richardson, which is pretty cool, although I have to say he's much different than the crypt keeper on the show. So anyway, these 5 individuals meet the crypt keeper, and we basically get a story about each one of them and something they did in their life that was definitely something you would consider to be suspect behavior. So we start with the first story called And All Through the House, starring Joan, who gives a pretty solid performance here. And the basic premise of this one is that basically a woman has some sinister intentions toward her husband. She also has a little girl, and there's a madman running free in the town. So how all these things connect is done pretty well. It's pretty suspenseful, although this is one of those stories I thought could have used a little more time to really flesh it out. This one was also notably made into a Tales from the Crypt episode with a much different tone. This anthology pretty much plays it straight. There's not a lot of humor here, whereas in the show they added a lot of humor to a lot of the episodes. And, but I would say this is definitely a very suspenseful tale. Well done. It's a pretty basic premise, but it's good. Other than maybe all the Christmas carols throughout the whole episode, was not a huge fan of that. But others may think it adds to the mood. It was fine. But overall, a solid start. Then we go to what I thought was easily the weakest segment, which was called Reflection of Death, starring a very good actor, Hendry, who I've seen in other things before, but he's wasted here. He's not really given much to do, in my opinion. So this one's another basic story about how a man basically finds another woman. He's going to leave his wife, and it kind of takes off from there. And there is a twist to this episode, but I thought it was predictable and not very well done. And the story just kind of ends abruptly. This is one that needed more time, but instead I would have probably just cut this one and given more time to one of the other better stories. It's there. It's not like it's terrible or anything. It just kind of feels like it's there, and it's a way to pass time and make the movie go up to 90 minutes. But things get better from there. The third story, Poetic Justice, starring the great Peter Cushing, about an old man who a couple of greedy people try and drive out of his home. Now, this is another very basic story with a pretty predictable ending, but the thing that really lifts this one is a great performance by Peter Cushing. It's very touching, and honestly, of all the great performances he's given, I think this is one of his best, which is saying a lot. Others may disagree, but he really got to me here, and it really helped me be invested in the story. I do feel like this one, the characters are fleshed out a little better as well, and this was my favorite segment. Even if you just want to check out one segment from this, definitely check out Poetic Justice. Next, things kind of go down a little bit again with Wish You Were Here, starring Richard Greene. And this is a basic 3 wishes monkey paw tale, however you want to say it. I didn't think the segment was bad, but the end is a little bit strange, even for my taste. And this is another one that just kind of ends abruptly, and it's just kind of there. I thought it was a little better and a little more fleshed out than Reflection of Death, but overall, it's okay. Then things get a little bit better again with Blind Alleys, the closing segment, which was probably the second best. I would put it a little bit over And All Through the House, and that's mostly because of the excellent acting by Nigel and Patrick Magee, an actor that I always enjoy in anything I see him in. He's definitely been in some other horror films I've seen. And this is basically a story about a home for the blind and a greedy new owner and how he treats them, and we go from there. This segment was a little bit slowly paced, but I appreciate that they fleshed out the characters a bit more. And the ending of this one is suitably crazy, but this one overall worked for me. I believe this one was also made into a Tales from the Crypt television episode with a different title and a little bit different plot, but very similar. And then the show ends basically with the conclusion of the wraparound story, which is fine. The wraparound story is fine. Overall, I do recommend Tales from the Crypt. Like I said, I probably would have cut one or two stories and fleshed out the other ones more. But the stories I didn't care for, like Reflection of Death and Wish You Were Here, they're still okay. They're not terrible. I just didn't really think they were all that necessary. Others may disagree. There always seem to be varying opinions on which stories are the best in these things. And All Through the House was good. Blind Alleys was good. Poetic Justice is great in my opinion, mostly, especially for fans of Peter Cushing. So overall, I give Tales from the Crypt a pass. If you're into anthology movies, or you just want to see the origins of where the TV show possibly came from, I do recommend watching Tales from the Crypt. I will be doing a review on the sequel, Vault of Horror, soon, so you can definitely check that out, and more reviews coming soon throughout the month, including some Vincent Price, Roger Corman movies in the next couple weeks. Thanks for watching.